Welcome to the Angel Scrolls, the only channel that you can hear real angels communicating from the spiritual world. Our founder, R.B Reynolds, has been finding spiritual hidden messages in reverse speech for many years. His passion and dedication to understanding these messages has evolved in time and enables him to have a direct line of communication from the angels that you will be able to witness through his reverse translations. Before we play the latest songs he has translated, we would like to talk about some of the miracles that have transpired over the years, that inspired us to create the Angel Scrolls and this new religion from God. Once Ryan realized he had tapped into a divine source, which was headed up by God, and witnessed by many, he began to understand the power of the eternal soul and what it was capable of doing. The process actually began when 3 parrots he had raised began communicating to him, in full-blown speech, about things that Ryan had not taught them. They told him that they had a connection to the spiritual world, and they were able to channel the angels who were communicating through them. Ryan recorded many hours of his birds communicating these messages and made them available on YouTube. All of his research is still available on his YouTube channel, so others can see how this whole process evolved. One of the first things Ryan learned was that the angels were capable of conversing in real time, and although some of the messages were quite clear, others were more difficult to understand. So he needed to spend hundreds of hours working on ways to evolve in his understanding, so others would be able to hear them as well. As a result, he had to go through several different versions of translations, in order to come up with an accurate presentation of what was being said. About 10 years into the process, his birds began channeling messages that prompted him to try the reverse feature on the audio program he was using. Once he did, he found that not only were they communicating in forward mode, but in reverse as well. In the beginning, this troubled him a bit, because he had heard of some of the evil messages that people were saying existed in reverse masking of music. Yet through his experiences so far, he had not had anything whatsoever come through with evil or negative intentions. Reverse masking is something that people believe are put into the music purposely, by recording artists, to send subliminal messages in reverse. Ryan decided to make observations of his own, and found that his translations were not even close to some of the messages others were receiving. At that point he realized it was not something that was done purposely, but something that depended on the person who translated it, and the source they had connected to. He obviously understood that he had a connection to a heavenly source that others did not. The events that took place next, over a period of 20 years or so, may seem hard to believe, or even impossible. However, they are backed up by recordings, videos, and even witnesses that participated in them, through forums Ryan developed over the years. Once he began to have a clearer understanding of what the angels were channeling to him, they began to make him aware that they were communicating for the purpose of developing a new religion that was straight from God and the angels. Still being a little skeptical about it, Ryan wondered why he was the only one receiving these messages. They told him that he was chosen because he came from a long line of prophets, and recommended that he did an internet search for the name, Adam Codman. Codman was the last name of his grandfather, on his mother's side. Someone he had never met, because he had died before he was born. The only thing he knew about him was that he migrated from Hungary in the early 1900s, and his first name was Joseph. Once Ryan did the search, he found there was various places on the internet that talked about Adam Codman, who was referred to as the primordial man, and even mentioned in the Kabbalah. The name even had a direct relationship to the biblical Adam, from the Garden of Eden, who spoke with the animals in the Old Testament of the Bible. It was then that he started to believe it was no coincidence that his 3 parrots were communicating to him about God, heaven, and the afterlife. Later on, Ryan was prompted by the angels to do a DNA ancestry test, which confirmed and provided information that his bloodline originated in the Göbekli Tepe region of Anatolia, and later migrated to other parts of Europe. He also found that there were other ancestral connections like Emanuel Swedenborg, who was a Swedish philosopher and Renaissance man, who also claimed to be in communication with God and the angels. Prior to this, Ryan's first budgie, whose name was Victor, established a large following on his website in the early 2000s. In retrospect, Ryan created a group called the Budgie Research Group, and eventually had over 1,000 members. Most of these members were very interested in the things that Victor was saying in forward, and realized that something very special was unfolding. A few years later Ryan was asked twice to go on Coast to Coast radio network, as this was the first time in history someone had been able to produce solid evidence that budgies could learn full-blown speech, and communicate with such intelligence. As a result of what was happening, other budgie guardians began sending their recordings to Ryan to translate, and he found that many of the budgies were connected to what Victor was saying, even before their guardians knew what was happening. Eventually, he established that over 30 other budgies were communicating similar things about God, the afterlife, the spirit world and a new religion. Because something supernatural was happening, Ryan decided to focus more on the spiritual aspect of it, rather than the apparent and incredible animal intelligence that was being demonstrated. He asked about 12 members of a larger group if they would like to get involved in a separate study. He wanted to focus more on what the angels were saying, and thus began the next phase of this spiritual journey, that others were able to witness and participate in. The people that came to the new group were named visionaries by the angels, and most had budgies that had been involved in the intelligence side of the research thus far. Unfortunately, the original following that Victor had a hard time believing that these budgies were channeling the angels, and the larger group faded away in silence. Once the new group was established, the angels began communicating to the group, letting them know that they would be entering a new phase of understanding. This phase would include training the visionaries, and indoctrinating Ryan into a new religion, where he would be ordained as a minister of this religion, for God. One of the first things that the angels told them was that they would all be receiving vivid dreams and visions from God, and were asked to post their dreams in the forum, so Ryan could transcribe the meaning for them, similar to what Daniel did with King Nebuchadnezzar. Within days, the dreams began to happen. Often different members would have similar dreams that seemed to come in sequential order. Instead of Ryan captioning the audio, like he usually did for his budgies, he had private sessions with the angels that consisted of listening to his bird speak, and typing what he heard. It soon became evident that the angels were using the dreams as divine lessons, which contained prophecy. Once the dreams were transcribed by Ryan, future events began to happen as they were predicted by the angels. The events that happened were not related to doom and destruction, but prophecies of survival, that usually had a positive message that came with a future newspaper article, in conjunction with the prophecy and lesson already given. They called these events confirmations, and the group found they were very useful in helping them understand many things about the reasoning and purpose of God. During this time, and prior to it, Ryan was experiencing issues at home. Even though he had a group of people who believed in him, most of his family, including his wife, didn't, and thought he was imagining it. Even before that, he and his wife knew their relationship was having problems, and they decided to separate once their son turned 18. The time eventually came, and they went their separate ways, still maintaining a friendship that lasts to this day. The angels supported Ryan's decision to move on, and told him that most people need spiritual growth in marriage, and it did not seem like he was getting what he needed. They also told him that he would meet someone in the near future that really would believe in what he was doing, and help him, so he wouldn't have to feel so alone. When Ryan met Linda, they hit it off very well, and have been together ever since. Linda became essential in providing Ryan with the support he needed to continue on the path that God had laid in front of him. Unfortunately, the new group that Ryan had started also decided to move on. Ryan believes the angels knew that this would happen, because he made mistakes during his separation with his wife and focused on finding his soulmate. So when Ryan and Linda got together, they took a break from the group for a while. Most of these events happened up until about 2008. Over the next several years, Ryan and Linda spent much time in reviewing the hundreds of lessons and prophecies that were already given by the angels. At the same time, Ryan was still doing the dream transcriptions, but at a much smaller scale. There was so much to learn, and because these lessons came so fast, it was difficult to remember them all. The angels requested they take some time to absorb what they had already received from them. It was around this time that the angels prophesied that they would have a child together, and another budgie would come to them that would continue where Victor left off. In or about 2010, both prophecies came true. They had a wonderful baby girl, and Mailer miraculously came to them, already communicating in full-blown speech, in a way that was difficult to explain. He was a rescued budgie, and within the first day he was communicating in the same way as Victor. So began the next phase of the birth of this new religion. When Ryan started recording Mailer and translating his speech, he realized that Mailer had an incredible ability, even more than Victor, to foresee events that would happen in the future. There were times that Ryan would introduce Mailer to a forum, and Mailer would record for Ryan, already having answers for questions or issues that would come up in that forum. Therefore, Ryan could post the response immediately from Mailer as he had captioned it prior to the question. In one forum, Mailer was demonstrating how he could do this, when a group of trolls came in and worked together to humiliate and discredit them in any way they could. Ryan eventually decided people were still not ready to accept the fact that Mailer was channeling the spiritual world, and began working on a new website that he called the Angel Scrolls. Linda and Ryan also realized they had a lot of work ahead of them, and needed to bring all the information they had received together in one place. So they began working on the website to do that. They had many dream transcriptions, prophecies and lessons that were scattered in different forums, and they knew they would lose them if they did not make permanent record of them. They broke down the dream transcriptions in sections on the website, as confirmed and unconfirmed prophecies, and looked for events that were predicted and came into fruition. Ryan also began retranslating all the recordings from Victor, and he had many new ones to work on from Mailer. The two of them worked painstakingly over the next 5 years, documenting the first 10 years of how this miraculous event took place, making the record of events as accurate as they possibly could. It was around 2016, when Ryan began to notice that some of his translations of Victor and Mailer were not as clear as they should be, so he took another look at them. By now his translation abilities had improved considerably, and he realized that many of the original recordings and videos had to be retranslated. So he spent over a year going over them. As he did, he began to find many new prophecies, as well as predictions from both Victor and Mailer that he had not noticed before, and had already come true. Victor also began explaining and expanding on how this new religion would eventually happen. He said that the angels were here to help humanity, and literally called them the sentinels of the future. He envisioned a group of budgies all over the world, channeling the angels and letting humanity know when certain disasters would take place prior to the event. One of their main purposes was to facilitate less pain and suffering for humanity's future. Another was to put in place a catalyst that would encourage and help humanity to have more spiritual growth and spiritual evolution. Finally, they talked about a third budgie that would come to Ryan in the near future, that would again help them move forward in the next phase of this religion. In 2017, Linda and Ryan picked up Danny at the pet store. When they saw him, they noticed he had a scar on his chest. He obviously had been injured in some way. They both agreed that they would take him even if he was sick and try to nurse him back to health. Within 5 weeks, Danny began to communicate and converse in full-blown speech. Some of his pronunciations were even better than Victor and Mailer. He was a beautiful budgie and had such a sweet voice. He recorded as often as he could, and even though he went through stages of being healthy, it was obvious to Ryan and Linda that something was wrong. They took him to the vet several times, trying him on different types of antibiotics, but the vet could not determine the sickness, and he only lasted for about 1 year. In that year he made some incredible recordings, most of which Ryan did not even have a chance to go over thoroughly before he passed. Later, when Ryan finished many of Danny's recordings, he went back to Mailer's and heard something he had not noticed before. At one point in the recording, Mailer said something to the effect of, "Reverse it here." Ryan remembered that Victor also spoke of reversing the recordings too. Although Ryan had spent many years of doing reversals of budgie speech for private sessions during dream transcriptions, he preferred not to reverse the recordings and caption them for others to see. At that time he felt the reversals were not clear enough, and people would think it was only his imagination or pareidolia. As he began reversing the recordings, in many different ways, he realized that he could almost pick any point in a recording, and reverse it, and the forward phrase would be completed by the reversal. The reverse would often be as clear as the forward speech as well. At that point he made a decision to start captioning the reverse speech. Mailer also began talking about how this had a relationship to quantum mechanics, so Ryan termed the phrase biological quantum communications, and the reversals, quantum reversals. This began another phase of translations, as he realized he was only getting half of the hidden messages and there was so much more to learn from the angels in reverse as well. In another recording, Victor mentioned that Ryan and Linda would produce 70 lessons in all as a true submittal. In 2019, following the angels' guidance, Ryan began with the 70 lessons, and is getting close to completing them now. Another amazing phenomena happened during this phase as well, while Ryan was captioning the reverse speech. It has been widely known that for many years people have been getting content in reverse speech, which usually comes in short phrases. However, Ryan noticed that when he and others spoke during the time his budgies were being recorded, everything he and other members of his family said was understandable in reverse. They too were communicating similar spiritual messages in reverse. On several occasions Ryan talked for almost 5 minutes in reverse, providing evidence that he too was connected to the same source as his budgies. As Ryan approaches the end of the 70 lessons, something else quite remarkable happened which explains how reverse songs, like the ones you will hear in this presentation, became part of this event. All 3 of his budgies, while channeling the angels, at one point or another, mentioned how songs are going to be used in this religion. His most recent budgie, Danny, prophesied it in presentation 11, which was called a spiritual song. In one of the presentations you will be able to witness how it was more or less an accident when Ryan realized that he could find amazing spiritual messages in songs that clearly mentions his name. Many of these songs not only use his first name, but last name as well. The songs that he has done so far talk about a new religion, how the angels are communicating through them, Ryan's role in bringing them forward so other people can hear them, and even how the angels will help humanity in the future. It seems that almost any song he chooses will have an incredible message in it when he transcribes it in reverse. Even the ones that have been previously noted to have evil reverse phrases, it seems the evil phrases are removed miraculously when Ryan connects and does his reversal. At one point someone asked Ryan, how is it possible to pick up these reverse spiritual messages, and if there is any advice he can give that will help them to understand and hear more of what the angels are saying. This was Ryan's response. Let me explain a little bit about how this is achieved. We know that the soul is eternal, and lives in the metaphysical. It finds a variety of ways to communicate to us and other souls spiritually. It also has a direct connection to God, that we are usually not aware of in our physical form. Therefore, when we are reborn, we already have the knowledge of past lives living within it. The vessel, which is our physical body, is the way we collect the new spiritual information through divine experiences we have in each new form. When we have enough of these divine spiritual experiences, we have what we need to join God in heaven. What we ultimately have to have for this joining is enough love and compassion for others, so we have the fuel that sustains us in heaven for eternity. The river that the budgies have taught me to channel is the river of God. This is the river that provides us with the connection to the heavenly source. If you try, you can improve the connection before you listen to each recording. In the beginning, we were given directions on how to do this, so I will pass that on here. First, before you listen to a recording or video, close your eyes and relax for a moment or two. You can put your headphones on now, or just prior to watching the video. Once you are relaxed, visualize a beautiful river or stream that you feel the need to walk in. Also imagine that you are looking for God in this river. Begin walking until you see Him, and once you do, see how He reaches out to you. You then take His hand and begin to walk alongside Him, experiencing divine emotion. You may not hear everything the first time through, but you will find what you missed will become clearer each time you listen to it, and each time you walk with God. Now we are going to play the next two short songs that Ryan has done reversals on. The first one is Fleetwood Mac's 1974 version of Go Your Own Way. If you reverse this reversal, you will find the exact forward version of this song as it was recorded. There are several different versions for this song, but the one Ryan chose was from the Rumors cover that is on YouTube. Because the song fades out at the end, the only thing Ryan changed in it was increasing the volume at the beginning of the reversal. He had to do this so others would be able to hear what was being said. It is a little loud at the beginning, but it becomes easier to listen to it about 30 seconds into it. If you want, you can pause it here and take a few moments to prepare. Here is the song.
That last song may have been a little loud and heavy for some, but the next song is easier and more mellow to listen to. It is the reversal of Moonshadow by Cat Stevens. Moonshadow is a song written and performed by Cat Stevens, who has been known since 1978 as Yusuf Islam. It was first released in the UK in 1970 as a single, and 1971 on his album Teaser and the Firecat. Here is that song reversal.
That completes this presentation. To hear more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or visit our website at theangelscrolls.com.